In this video help, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the property inspection. But before I do that, I want to point out something. When you're creating a customer record, let's go back over to the menu. When you create a customer data record, you then can set property listings after that. Now, not every customer would have property listings. Sellers would, maybe an agent or a broker might have something where they're actually doing a property sale. But typically you would have to have a seller. And in the same manner, there wouldn't be a property inspection. Let's go down to property inspection. There wouldn't be a property inspection unless the property is going to be sold and they have a offer against the property, and the person that is actually requiring the inspection would be the buyer, but it is done for the seller to have the property looked at prior to the title and everything going through an escrow and all that stuff. So what you're looking at as you do the property inspection, you can go there in two different ways. Now I want to point out one other thing. I'm in the Mary Smith record. If she has a current property inspection and I click the property inspection button, it's going to bring up Mary Smith if she already has a property, but you need to verify that it's the property. If she has more than one, you want to make sure that you have the correct property that is being created. If you're if you're in the actual record and you're going to go do a property selection, we're going to be creating a new record. What you'd want to do is you'd want to check to make sure, is the inspection already created for that property? And what I want to indicate here is there can be multiple inspections on one property. So the inspection data would be based on who the buyer is. So the buyer that you're looking at would be the one that is requesting the property inspection, and that inspection may be done by more than one person if there's been more than one property inspection done. So what are we really saying? When you come to this record and you're going to create a new record, and the new record is for somebody who has not had a property inspection before this, you could create a new record. If you're going back and you just want to look at the inspection that was done, for example, for Mary Smith, you would come into the screen and review that inspection that was done. If there's going to be multiple inspections for the same property, you would create a new record and indicate the information and everything in the cover sheet and the inspection report for the person that is actually requesting the property inspection, which would be the buyer, and it's responsibility of the seller to give them that inspection. It may even be a different company that's doing the inspection. So you have to make sure that when you're looking at the records, you're looking in the proper place. Now, obviously, you can go over to the list and look at all the lists, and you can go in and start a find and look for the either the seller or the property itself, as far as the where you're going to look for the property, as far as the indication of which property you want to work with. So there's a drop down list that you can pick the property. If that property is something you're returning to review, you can always look at the information in here and then go ahead and go into that record from here. Or if you do a look, for example, if I'm looking at Bill Holland and he's got more than one inspection for the property in this list view, I could look at the one I want and then go ahead and go to that one. And if there's none in here at all for that particular person, then what I should do is go ahead and create a new record. So we look at Frank here. He's got one here and another property here, two different properties that are actually going to require an inspection. The dates I put in, of course, these are all bogus records that you should overwrite. And how do you overwrite them? Well, if you go back into the main screen, the data that's in the different fields needs to be replaced with data that's actually correct. The same thing goes for the property information. Where do you start that? Well, you would go back to the original record in the client data record, customer data up here, and replace the information that's in here. For example, if I'm looking at the select record and I'm looking at number 1, it's the first one that's going to be created, I would go ahead and change out Mary Smith and overwrite that information with your own record, and do that for the first 4 records. It's important to understand that overwriting is what you're supposed to do. You should not delete a record. They should stay in sequence, and they should always be in sequence by the name and then the actual ID for the individual records. So you're going to be replacing 4 records when you start running this application and overwriting them with your own data for your own clients. And this is a good experience for you because what you have is records that are established with an ID, and you're going to walk through the data and you're going to make the changes that are required in the data. One other thing I want to point out here is when you create this record, it's the primary record in the database. What this means is you have to have this record for any of the other records throughout the application. You have to have this data first before you start making any other data in other records. And as you understand or not understand, I'm going to point out that when you're in this screen and you've created a new record and you've got the ID for the particular client that's in here, that particular client ID will carry all the way through all the work that's being done for this particular property. So for example, if I'm actually looking at this and I want to know something about this particular property or the client, I would start with the basic record in here and then work my way through. And then if I go, for example, to the listing, and I'm going to create a listing and say this is actually a seller, or we go to the listing, come down here to the listing, put in the property listing, and you'll see that it'll bring over the data. And the way you do that, again, I'm just going to recap it so you're aware of it. These are the different people that are actually entered in the customer data, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a listing as far as the property listing is concerned. They would have to be a seller before you would do actually a property listing for them. Or you may be putting in, say, for example, maybe an agent from a different company has created, or your own agents have created a customer record for a property for that particular client. Then you would come over here if that's a property that's going to be sold and you're the agent going to show this property, then you're going to need to have the listing to work with in order to use the other data that is in this area and also to do an inspection if it's required. So it's very typical of what you would expect from a normal property management thing that you're doing as far as doing the real estate listings and the inspections. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back over to the property inspection. And as I pointed out, there's a list view in each one of these screens where you can go see the information as far as which property you want to identify, and if it's not in the listings, and then you have to put it in the listings first before you can do the inspection. So make sure that it is listed in the listings before you try to add the inspection. Don't jump over and try to create an inspection for something you don't have a listing for. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the actual inspection area. The first thing you would do when you come in here is you have the property ID, the property inspection address. You would pick the appropriate one or create a new record. The next thing you're going to do is put the seller information in here. It's going to have to be repeated as far as where it came from, the customer's area, and re-enter that because this is a selling activity and the activity needs to know who the seller is because it's not directly linked to the customer data screen. This information needs to be added in here. You're going to be putting in the seller's agent company, whoever the real estate organization is that is actually working on the selling of this property, and the agent individual in that real estate company, their telephone. You also have the inspection location, which is the property, and based on the property number from the actual main listing information, it would come over here. That property information would be, for example, number 3 would be this Starlight, and you can see down here that is what the application is brought up when you put this in. Now, typically when you put these in, you're going to have to add all this information manually because you're creating all this in a new record. Okay, when you click on the different record, you're going to also see that it'll change the actual main record. So if I go in property select and now I look in here, I'm looking at Mary Smith's, which is a different property at 177 Ridge Trail. So that's how you can find them, or you can go to the list view like we've shown you before and pick them at the list view area and then start working from there. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. We have the listed property. The next thing we're going to do, we've already picked, by picking a property from the listings, we've added this information in here for us. If this property is listed, you can use that listing MRLS URL and add it into here from wherever it's listed at. So you can just click the site icon up here and it will take you to that listing, and the information for the listing should all be this information here, and you want to make sure that it's correct. And then you would go ahead and add from the MRLS listing if you want to, this direct description if that particular MRLS includes that. In this case, I took the description taken on 9/6/2012. Well, that's a bogus thing. That's just so that I could have records in here that you can know by the 2012 date that it's actually an example record, so you don't get confused when you add your own. Once again, you would be overwriting all this information with your own inspection information based on the prior screen in the listing and based on the screen before that, which is the customer data. Okay, now when you come in here too, you also see the cover page and inspection buttons. What these are going to do is once you create this property information, it's going to allow you to go ahead and create a cover page. Now we're in the listing page right now, but I'm going to go ahead and click this and it's going to take me into the property inspection cover page. The cover page took the information you just filled out and the data down here, and then what happens is you have the seller data in here, and you'd want to also put the buyer's data in here. And then it has a detailed description of the property that comes over from the screen that we were just working in with that popover. Now for the inspection preparation, if there are things that may be known or not known as far as the inspection is concerned, as these things come up, you should put the preparation, or say maybe the agent has recognized something and they bring it to the attention of the inspector to make sure that that area is covered when they do the inspection. And the same thing goes for general comments. If the inspector has some issues or special things that they need to check during the location of the property when they're there, then they need to be covering that. And then these are the primary areas that an inspector should be aware of and things that he's checked as far as the property description. For example, it does have a garage, it doesn't have a carport, if it has a bar, AC, all this stuff is stuff that he should be aware of on the cover sheet to make sure that he checks all these items. Now, there's a larger view of this on the one of the popovers, so you can go ahead and indicate those things in this record by putting the X's in there, and the property listing is where that is done. Okay, let's go ahead and up here to the inspection company. Information is put in here on the screen. The inspection is prepared by, and the inspection delivery date when it's supposed to be delivered, the inspection delivery time when the actual inspection is supposed to be done, in the inspection company phone for the inspector that did the inspection, in the inspection company website if there is one. And in this particular case over here, this is where you can put a photo of the property on the inspection sheet. When he's going to look at it, you could have that particular photo in there. And then over here is the inspection company puts their little bit of information as far as who they are and what they're doing. If this is your own agency, you could go ahead and put that in there, and it should be obviously what the inspection company needs to have in there. Okay, let's go ahead and go back, and the way we go back is to go ahead and use the property screen or the inspection screen. Let's go back to the inspection screen. Okay, the property selection, once you've created the new record, we said we added the seller. The next thing we're going to be doing is working on this little thing I was talking about. This should be done so that the inspector is aware of things like is there solar heat, solar electric, whatever it may be. If it's not listed here, it actually can be commented on separately because there's going to be things that are not always listed. Obviously, there's some things that the inspector will see, or for example, if there's outbuildings or sheds or garages that are unattached, then they need to be able to be aware of that, okay? And that would be in the narrative as far as the description of the property. Make sure that everything is filled out in here, like the MRLS number, the listing broker, and the broker's phone. Make sure that's in there. And obviously that has a listing property, the city, the state, and so forth information in here, and you should have the MRLS number in here for the property because this is going to be going to the inspection work order. Okay, let's see the inspection data. The inspection data is a little different than the actual different worksheets. What this is when the inspector goes through the actual inspection, he can indicate, and I'm going to change, by the way, I'm going to go up here and pick a different property that is one that let's see here. I think it's number 3. I think that here. I want to do this because there is some information in it is not obvious in the other ones. Whoops, we went back to let's go back to the inspection page. Okay, inspection data. Inspection data is where you indicate, and all this information should be added already when you come into the sheet. You should have the buyer's information, and the inspection assignment notes. This is a typed in area where you add text as far as the inspection notes are concerned. Let's go ahead and go back out of there. And then the inspection data, we did that as far as the data. Now you would have all this filled out. Now what is this down here? This is where you have the inspection company, and they go ahead and put their data in there, the type of structure, the inspection area that they're working in, and the inspection type, and these are drop downs where you have different things where you can put it in there. And if you move down to the bottom, you can actually also add different values in there if you need to. The inspection issue, this is just a little brief thing that says what was the issue that you found when you were in there. And basically it can be any of these kind of things that you're looking at here. And there's quite a few different things. And these will have add-ons so you can edit these, because there is actually if I go up to the main screen up here, I'm going to show you this. Click off of here. If you go down to the bottom, you're going to see what's called a setup list. And the setup list has all of those drop-down lists that you can change these lists. And these are the different places where you would go to change those lists. And it would provide you with, let's pop one up to say it's structure. You can add in here by adding a new record, and then put the narrative in here and go down until you have all the things that you want to have in that list. And that's important that you have those things entered in there. You can go back to the inspection by clicking here, and then of course you can change those things, like I said, from like the structure type, the inspection area, the inspection type, the type of issue. And the date is obviously a date drop down, so you can go ahead and put the date in there. Now there's a portal in here where you can look at the actual portal record of that same row line. Now there's nothing in here. You have to have something in there before that would function, because there's no record to go to until you actually have data in this field. And the same thing goes for if you're looking at the actual record for the property. This information has come over from the listing, but you can also add comments in here for those. And now this is a portal record. So what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to move down through this set of records. Each time you do something in the inspection, you can see, in this case I'm using the center bar and going through and look at all the inspection things where you've looked at them. Say for example you found a doorway where there was damage on the door, on the pad walking in the door, and it needed to be repaired before you got it done. You would take a photo of that and then go ahead and add your little narrative up here so they would know which one it was. And the photo size is kind of important. If you're putting this on your iPad, you want to use a lower resolution of image. You don't want something that's 26 by 32 inches in here and it's 2 megs of data. You'd probably want to have something under 400 kilobytes, preferably around 200 kilobytes. And then of course you'd add your comments down here at the bottom about each one of the items as far as what it needs to have on it as far as a corrective action, and also what the problem is. So you would click in and then go ahead and type in your information as far as what you want to do here. And because these are these kind of things I can expect, you can also do select all, paste, text all, and style if you need to. If you are working on this and you're adding data, it's a good idea to put the date, like 3/whatever 2016, and that would be helpful in understanding when the inspection was done. If there was multiple days where they came out and did an inspection on different dates, you would know what happened and what date this refers to as far as the thing that you found. Okay, so we go back up here, and you can see in this particular case is actually new construction. So inspection, you should have everything that is correctly done in that kind of a dwelling. You can click back on the tab to return here. Let's go ahead and go down to the next thing, which is the cover page for the inspection. Now this is the thing we were just looking at over here, where we came from the listing area, where we could pop over and look at that from the listing area. In this particular case, you would fill all this information in and have it filled in. And then we already went through this. So I'm going to say you can go to the portal for this and get a portal view of the actual thing. And this is where you could actually print it from. Or from here, if you want to do a do action and do a find for any of these records in here for a cover page, you could use the do action to go in and actually get the page that you're looking for as far as that particular thing that you're trying to do. Okay, let's go back to the inspection. And the next thing we're looking at is the property inspection portal where we were just at. So if you wanted to pop over here to the inspection thing and use this portal button, or come down here and go directly to the portal for that record, you could do that. And obviously this shows it in a portal on this screen. It's in a popover. And when you're creating an inspection, you actually do create them here. You do not create them in the portal. And so, for example, if I'm doing the cover page, I would work on the cover page within here, the portal here, and the inspection data, creating a running chronology of all the things that we found on the inspection area. Now, obviously, when you're doing the actual inspection items, when you're putting them in here, you would want to put in the information from each individual page where it addresses the issue that you found, and you would add in the pictures over here for that particular thing. And then, like I said, that listing that we looked at the bottom where you can edit these, if you needed to edit these drop downs, you would edit them from those inserts that we did, and shows you the list items that are in the list. And of course, you would add the new lines if you needed to from there. And there's several of them in there. I think there's 6 or 8 of those. Now the MRLS number is important. The date of the inspection, the time. This would be the date and time for where you're actually doing the particular item. Say, for example, you're looking in the bathroom and you see a leak from underneath the toilet. That's the kind of thing you would put in here. It might be the bottom seal between the floor drain and the toilet, and it needs to be fixed. So that's the kind of thing you'd put in here. And if you had a picture, say, for example, there was water running out from underneath there, you would put a picture of that. And you could put 2 pictures per sheet if you want to, as far as you could put 1 or 2 or none if you don't want to put 1. You can estimate the status as far as the action status, and the action status has its own list, so you can add stuff in here on that particular page I showed you earlier. The responsible party, as far as taking care of what has to be done, is based on this, and people that are responsible for making sure that these things are completed. Estimated cost. If you're an inspector, you have the option to put in an estimated cost so that the seller would have an idea from the standpoint of the inspector what it might cost to fix something. A leaking toilet obviously would be mostly labor and one material item, say the wax seal that goes underneath it, might fix it. Actual cost is based on what the seller actually had to pay for it, and then it was paid by it. Who paid for that? Who was the person that actually had to do the corrective cost on that? And if the inspection is being done, you might want to also add in the issues of how it was corrected. You might want to put who actually did the corrective action on this, as well as what was done as far as the action that was required for details. And the primary issue up above here is the list of information that it pertains to how this needs to be corrected. For example, if there were dead bugs and all this stuff in the shown, and they found out that it was termites, then you'd say found dead bugs, termites or whatever, and appropriately tell them where it was at. Because if it was cleaned up and they then had a picture of it, you could see that there were termites in a certain area, say for example in the eaves, or maybe someplace in the garage, in the walls or whatever. You'd want to make sure that they know exactly where that's at. This is typical for an inspector to know where this is going to be done. And the inspector himself would recognize that as far as responsibility of indicating all those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and do something real quick here. Once again, this is the portal where you would enter the data, and then when you want to print or search on the data, of course you have to have something in there first in order to have the thing go over to that record. Then you would go to the portal. Now I can always go to the portal over here, but I would have to go to the portal up here, I'd have to go to the application information, come down, and you'll see. Let's go through these. Property inspection screen, inspection cover page, property inspection form, the inspection list view for all the list of all the items, and then the report. We're going to go into the report in a second. The client contact envelope allows you to print an envelope if you're going to be sending this out to somebody in the mail. And then, of course, the setup list where we were talking about before. Let's go to the inspection report and see what that looks like. The inspection report is obviously going to have the inspection company. It's going to have the date of the inspection. Now, a lot of this data comes from the cover sheet and also the other information that you put together in the report. You do not create the data in here. It's created when you put it in on the cover sheet and the inspection information. Property listed address, the inspection area that you were doing, the page number of the individual pages for the inspection. And these would say, for example, if I wanted to go to this property and look at all the items, I would do a find for that particular property, and I would use the property down here where it says property address. And that would give me the information as far as all the stuff that I had to have as far as, here's the property address right here. Property listing address, and the actual one I would use here would be this one to search on in order to find it. I could see that we didn't put the property listing address in there, and the inspection area would be put in by the inspector and the page number. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into one as far as the inspection portal. And here's one that which you actually would see if you had one filled in. And this indicates the kind of information that you would have to have in there when it's completely filled in. This right here may change, and some of these may change as things are corrected. And here's an idea of a picture where there was obviously this is not a very accurate picture as far as, but we needed something to show where they're doing work on the door and the steps, and they have to be corrected and finished before the dwelling could be taken care of. Okay, customer inspection, inspection cover page, and inspection report. You can get to all those by just clicking on this, and it takes you back. Those are fast, or what I call quick links to go to where you want to go to. Okay, so with all the items that we've covered, let's kind of recap. We came in and did all the things we were supposed to do. Customer data was added. We had some activity and meeting sheets. We did a listing for the property that's going to be sold. We did a property showing, a property list view, the data portal. If we need to use that, we use it for information that is important. Property offer we did. We did photos for the property portal. Then we did the inspection cover sheet, the inspection form, and the inspection list view, and the inspection report. And finally, we mailed something to a client. We had an address envelope that we could create. And of course, then we had this list of where we can edit these lists and add stuff to them as far as the information that is required for the drop-down lists. Okay, now this pretty well covers the entire application, but let me indicate that there will be, if say for example this application is just being released now, over a period of time I'm going to have people identifying things that they have questions on, and I will be creating new videos. And usually the typical video is a tips and update, and the video will show you things that came up as questions, and the users have indicated that they didn't know exactly how to use certain things, or they were having issues. And what I'll be doing is adding a video that covers those kinds of things. But I suggest what you should do also is that if you need help, use the video help button and go to our website and indicate if you need help or have questions. You can either leave us a comment with your email, or if we're there, we can answer them live. I tend to use Skype as far as a live thing where I actually come in and say, for example, you're having difficulty figuring something out, like how to edit a list or whatever. I would go in and explain in detail on a live thing where I either show you my screen or you can show me yours. Now, I'll indicate one thing you need to know. If you're using Skype on an iPad, the iPad does not allow you to show your screen from Skype. But if you have a desktop machine or you're using the browser to show your cloud or the cloud version, you need to be able to show your screen in some cases so we can see the questions you may have. So those are the things that would be helpful. If you know those things now, then when you come and call us, that you'll be able to have Skype already on your system. By the way, Skype is free, and you do not have to pay any fees for Skype whatsoever. They do indicate that you should add money to their Skype thing, and you do not have to do that. Skype is a free application to download and a free application to use, and it is international, so you can use it from any country in the world. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and go to our video helps and review those, or contact us through our website. And as I've indicated several times, use the video helps prior to doing anything as far as trying to enter data. And if you're having issues and you don't understand something, go ahead and contact us through the tech support. Thank you.